Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 94 of the podcast. Today, I'm going to chat about holding on and letting go. And this is an essay that I wrote this week. I've been thinking a lot about how much crafty stuff I have and how it's great. I have lots of tools, I have lots of materials, I have so many different interests, from quilting to fabric design to woodworking. And there's different places for all of these different crafts in my home and in my life, but sometimes this stuff gets in my way, and it can be a barrier to being creative and making new things. So that's what I'm thinking about this week, and it's timely. A lot of things happened this week that just made me start reflecting on this and thinking about it a lot, and I really want to make a change about how I'm dealing with the messes and being creative. I really feel like I need a better set of habits around this, as far as I do something, I make something creative, and then I put my toys away. And I know that might not sound like much fun, and I know that that might sound like, oh my gosh, that's so boring. But I think that's the good thing. I think that's the more mature way to be a creative person, because ultimately, when I walk into a room that's just crowded and congested and crazy, and I've got 3 projects in progress on every single surface, and there's just stuff piled everywhere, it doesn't make me feel more creative. It makes me feel very frustrated and anxious, and like I don't want to work on any of that, because it's just, there's so many barriers in my way. So yeah, that's what this podcast episode is going to be about, and you can check below the video for a timestamp. You can jump directly to that, and this is going to be an audio only podcast for the second half of the show, because I am recording this in my sound booth, my official, very nice sound booth in my bedroom closet, because this is kind of practice for audiobook narration, which is something I'm really wanting to get into. I've been wanting to record the audiobook for Mally the Maker. That's my quilt fiction novel, and I've been wanting to record that for a while, but I haven't been taking the steps that I needed to take to learn the basics. And it's this whole process of recording with a different audio recorder and being in the room and setting everything up and learning how to read off of my iPad, and there's just so much to it, and experience is everything. I just need to have that experience more often, on a daily or weekly basis, basically, and get that down, and then go to the computer program. I'm using a brand new computer program that I've not really used that much. I have to learn that, and it's time consuming and slow, but by putting it in the podcast, I'm forcing myself to do the steps and to get this figured out, so that when I'm actually working on a book, it's a lot less overwhelming, it's a lot less to learn. I'll have already figured it all out, and I've already learned it all. And I could maybe even incorporate some of this into a future audiobook down the road. I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's hard, it's not easy. It's absolutely rising to the challenge, because it's basically doubling the length of time it takes to record this, and then I don't have the video side of it. So I'm going to shoot some photos and stuff so that way you can see what I'm talking about, and maybe that'll be as interesting, at least I hope so. I don't think that you need a video of me recording in my bedroom closet, although that might be interesting, I don't know. So yeah, be looking forward to that the second half of the podcast. But the intro, I always like to share what's going on around the house, and I am getting a little bit further along on my goddess quilt. This is Eye of Calm, and I can say 100%, if you watched the podcast last week, then you'll know I've been working on this and talking a lot about freezer paper piecing. Well, that didn't work out, not a bit. So I modified my idea. This is actually a reverse. It ended up being the reverse image of what I had planned. That's okay. I'm kind of just rolling with the changes. It's kind of like I am allowing this quilt to evolve and do what she needs to do in order to work, and that's all right. So it ended up being applique, just straight lace, freezer paper, applique, turning the edges under, and I'm gonna hand applique this. And the reason is I I have to be honest, I really don't like fusible applique. It's about my least favorite technique in quilting. It's not necessarily the fusible, although, you know, there's that. I'm not a huge fan of the fusible. It tends to make things stiff in my opinion. It's the finishing the edges part of it that just drives me nuts, because no matter how narrow a zigzag stitch or a blind hem stitch or a whatever kind of stitch, I just still feel like that edge just on fusible applique, it ends up feeling very, very bulky. And I mean, this is just me being persnickety. I don't like that. If I, you know, especially the super soft curves of this goddess quilt, I just feel like that would be ruined with a big chunky satin stitch or even a blanket stitch along the edge. So I am gonna sit down and hand applique this. And because of that choice, I'm actually simplifying this particular quilt. I'm not gonna do the rows and rows and rows of echoing lines. In fact, actually, I'm not even using my master pattern underneath here so I can pick it up and you can see it. I'm not going to do, and you can find a photo of this on the show notes. It'll be at freemotionproject.com if you're listening to the audio. So I've decided not to do these echoing lines in the background. I'm basically going to make her as an applique and kind of go out to this outer line. It's kind of a great big giant I shape, vertical. I'm going to go out to that line on both sides, and then I'm going to applique it to one big giant piece of fabric. And I'm working with Dupioni silk. That is adding to the challenge because it's not acting like quilting cotton. It likes to fray. It does not like to turn a nice edge because it's slubby. So Dupioni silk has, it's woven with one color going in one direction and another color going in the opposite direction. So the weft and weave are different colors. It's very similar to shot cotton. If you've seen Pepper Corey's shot cottons, they're the same way. They're woven with two different colors so that depending on the light where you're looking at it, it can appear kind of more blue. Like this piece I'm holding is blue, but I can tell that the opposite weave was a darker blue / purple. And so depending on the light, how the light hits it, either looks blue or it looks more indigo purple. And I love that. It's gorgeous, but it is adding to the challenge of the whole thing. And I had to, you know, I reached a point with it last week. I was fiddling with it and things weren't working out all that well, and just said, all right, we're gonna, you know, change the idea. And to be honest, I'm craving hand applique right now. I'm craving a handwork project to sit on the couch and go slow with. And that's what I've been wanting to do. And the reason why I was leaning towards freezer paper piecing was because of speed. And in all honesty, I'm not all that concerned with that. I want this to go slow. I want to sit there and hand stitch around all of these beautiful turned edges. I want that effect, and I'm willing to take that time to do it. And even if that's a little bit less efficient, I really, that's the thing. It's like, what do we enjoy? Why do we do this? Why am I making this goddess quilt? It's not for speed. It's not to crack it out in a day. You know, it's not to have it done tomorrow. It's so I can enjoy the experience of making it. The slow, the steady, the one stitch at a time. And that's why I'm making it. So giving myself permission to go with the more time-consuming technique, the technique that I really want to do. It all feels good. But if I sound a little tired, it's because in order to do this, I've had to seriously clean up upstairs. And I don't know, I really, I busted tail yesterday. Let's just put it that way. Spent the whole morning cleaning up and then went outside and started building a little shed in my backyard. And James was not all that eager to help and not all that interested in construction engineering, which I was aiming to teach him. But he learned real quick that you have two choices. You can either help me set the stakes for this little, it's an 8-foot by 4-foot little shack. It's going to be like a three wall structure, very, very simple. And it's using up all the scrap wood. I have a lot of scrap wood kind of laying around the yard, and I want to use it all up and have a space to either store garden stuff, or maybe this will be a space for my rabbits. I'm still looking into getting bunny rabbits, something along those lines. And James wasn't all that interested, so I gave him a choice. I was like, you can have a great attitude with this and help me measure and, you know, find the corners and stuff, or you can go pick up sticks. He ended up picking up sticks for a little while at least, but then he turned it around and we had some fun and got the stake set. And then I pretty much have all the wood that I need, which is awesome. I just needed one 4x4 and Josh went and picked that up for me today. So yeah, I totally busted tail yesterday and now I am tired and sore. And I woke up this morning going, I feel like I fell down a flight of stairs, and I really didn't feel like I was doing all that much physical stuff, but you know, it added up. What I was, you know, all the stuff running around, moving things, it really added up. So yeah, if I seem a little off today, that's why. I'm just running a little tired. But yeah, I'm so pleased that I made this decision on this goddess, and then now it's going together so smoothly. This applique technique, it's very, very simple. You turn under the edges, and fortunately, the way I did it, I don't have my guidelines and marks to really, like all the hash marks I was marking last week are not really coming in handy. So what I'm doing is where I leave a long side, I just kind of bend that over a little bit and I just make a little mark on the right side of the fabric so I know kind of more or less where it's supposed to go. Is this going to be perfect? Not a bit. No, it's probably not. It's not going to be like terrible. It's based on the templates that I made, but it's not going to be exact as much as it would have been if I had my other technique going on. And that's the thing. I realized, you know, it's been so long since I did certain techniques that I've almost forgotten how to do some of them, and that's really frustrating, you know? And it's a reminder to me to honor the techniques that I really enjoy making, even if they take more time, and that's what I should be teaching, and that's what I should be sharing. And so it's kind of been a, get real, Leah. Do it the right way, and stop making the choice based on just speed, you know, because it's not all about getting it done fast. It really, really isn't. So yeah, that's what I'm working on today, puttering around. I got something really exciting I wanted to share with you guys. This was just so, so sweet. I got a letter from Frank Bennett, who is the Chief Executive Officer of AQS National Quilt Museum. So he wrote to me and said, Leah, hope you're doing well. Like to acknowledge things that come up in my day-to-day life. 2 of my staff members mentioned in a meeting this week that you have a really cool podcast. I went to your site and I must say I like the energy of everything you're doing. Thanks for promoting the wonderful art of free motion quilting. And yeah, that was just so awesome. I mean, I can't tell you, just to out of the blue receive a letter like that from someone like Frank, you know, like official dude in the quilting universe. That just, it feels really like I'm being appreciated, and the podcast is bigger than I would have imagined, I guess I should say. And, you know, and it made me almost feel a little bit like, I turned on the camera and was thinking about that, like, oh my gosh, I'm a little self-conscious. But then again, if that's what's being enjoyed, then that's what should continue. And it just made me feel really appreciated. And I love that Frank took the time to handwrite that note and send it to me. So I sent him an email and was like, hey, could you come on the podcast? So yeah, he's going to be on the podcast in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have a chat about what it's like to maintain a quilt museum and what he does to preserve quilts and keep that going. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be a future episode coming up soon. So a few other things going on around the house. I got 2 tutorials up for Miss Bunny, kind of combined them into one on the post. You can find all of the Miss Bunny tutorials at mallythemaker.com/bunny. But this tutorial, it was how to sew her dress, and then there's a separate video for how to do all the different back closures, and you can learn how to do Velcro, buttons and buttonholes, and snaps. And this was so much fun. Now, the 2 tutorials are over an hour long each. I mean, extremely detailed. And while I know that's slow, I kind of feel like that's important. You know, if a kid wanted to tackle Miss Bunny, it's not the easiest pattern in the world. Her head is the hardest part. And I would say hand basting those lines where you're fitting the side of her head into the center head is a good idea. It's a V, you know, seam. You don't stitch it that way. You stitch one half of it, and then you stitch the other half of it, but still easing that through and having basting stitches in place would be a really good idea. But it's just so exciting to see Miss Bunny dolls being made and their cute dresses. And I have one more tutorial. I just uploaded it today, and I'll probably share that on Friday. And that was for Miss Bunny's panties. I had a lot of fun with that one. It was the late in the day kind of me being silly. You'll see what I mean whenever you see the video. So yeah, lots of Miss Bunnies. Hopefully you will make one and share a picture with me so I can share it on the website. That would be awesome. And I love bringing her back to life. Miss Bunny was a doll that I had growing up, and I've heard from quilters that have said, you know, I had the original pattern, you know, I had that, you know, or I made the original Miss Bunny doll probably similar to what I had when I was a kid. You know, I searched for that pattern, I couldn't find it. So I really made my pattern, made my Miss Bunny doll off of memory, and was just trying to get her the right size, right shape, you know, aiming to get her dress back, you know, what I remembered it being. Now that I've done that, and I'm kind of, you know, I guess honored the past, now I'm kind of going, okay, how can I stitch this up a notch? You know, what would I want Miss Bunny to be wearing right now, today? And of course, I've been working on Mally dolls too, and making, you know, jeans with real working pockets and that kind of thing. It's just fun. I never would have thought doll making would be something I'd be interested in, but it is so addictive, and it's creativity, but it's so small, and once you kind of get the hang of it, it's very fast too, and that's what I love about it. It kind of gets my, it's making me want to sew clothing again, which is honestly shocking. I have not wanted to sew clothing in quite some time, but yeah, definitely all of that and more. So come and check out the Miss Bunny tutorials that I've shared at mallythemaker.com/bunny. And yes, I have been posting those instead of Frame Quilting Friday videos. I've been missing my Frame Quilting Fridays, and it's honestly, it's just being busy. I have lots of things that I'm sharing on I'm filming videos and stuff for the frame. On the pantographs, it's just ending up a lot more complicated than I anticipated, and I'm wanting to take my time and make sure that I fully cover this before I start sharing any of it. So I apologize. I do have the pantographs folded. They're ready to go. Dad it took 3 days to cut our pantographs apart and roll and fold them all up. But I'm super, super excited about that, and I'm thinking 1 more week, and I will have time to get everything solidified and all ready to go, all in one go. And this is the thing, I am learning not to rush. I guess that's kind of the lesson of this week, is just don't rush it. I feel like that's the lesson this goddess is teaching me, and that's also the lesson these pantographs are teaching me, because it'd be one thing to just, you know, throw something up, but if I feel like this is more complicated than it maybe seems, and at least it seems that way to me. I still sometimes have trouble wrapping my brain around it. So I feel like, especially when I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding something, that it's important to take the time to really investigate it and learn more about it, and then really make it work, you know, really do the best job I possibly can on it. And that feels good. It's a little frustrating I expected this to take a week and it's ending up taking 3 weeks, and that's frustrating on my end of things, but it's also, I think, a good thing. Again, it doesn't all have to be speed, you know, quick. Although I will have to say, once you get a pantograph on the machine and ready to go and understand how to index it, it goes by super quick. And I have taken and quilted 2 1-yard quilts and turned them into baby quilts that I'm going to donate to my quilt guild. I'm really excited about that. That for the first time ever, I mean, for years I was a quilt guild member, and I kind of felt like a little bit of a loser because I never had any quilts that I could donate. I could never produce anything fast enough, you know, with open enough quilting that, you know, made it work to make charity quilts. But now that I have the long arm, I can. It's just so much faster to quilt and be able to finish things, and that really feels great. I have a stack of quilts to take with me to the Charlotte Quilt Guild. I think, yeah, I'm aiming to attend the March meeting. So I have a whole stack of quilts I'm really excited about. I think like 5. And that's been test, quilts. That's been stuff that I started that I, just kind of was learning something new. Is the quilting perfect? Absolutely not. But it's the best I could do. And it's still a valid charity quilt. And it's still a good thing to donate and give that away. So I'm really excited about that. And being able to donate quilts and be able to share these pantographs with you very, very soon. And, again, my lesson is take my time, go slow, get it done right. And that feels good. That feels really good to give myself permission to do it that way. So one last thing, we have just hit, as of today, 300 members in the Quilting Friends Club. And thank you guys so much for joining in the fun. Just in case you've missed some podcast episodes, this is a club. It's a membership place where you can sign up for $2.99 a month or $24.99 a year. You get a good discount when you go for the year subscription. And it's basically a place for my best quilting friends. It helps support this podcast. It helps support the free tutorials that I share online. And it's just, we've set this up as a supportive community of like-minded quilters. And so far, there has not been a whiff of negativity. And I love it. It just makes me feel so amazingly supported, and it makes me want to do so much more for all these 300 members. And yeah, I'm going to be shooting the next How Do I Quilt This video. This is kind of the extra special thing for being part of the club. You get to see how to, suggestions on quilting designs. And so members have already posted lots of photos for this month, and I need to take them and download them and go out to my crafty cottage and share my different ideas for quilting each quilt. So that's a special bonus for being part of the Quilting Friends Club. And a super special thank you to the following 31 new members. And that is Karen Steinbach, Karen Fletcher, Lena Sunned, Cheryl Patton, Donna Marino, Linda Arias, Jamie Tofts, Agnes Joan Terradona, Tina Wujik, Pauline Shirarelli, Hewitt Adams, Kristen Slagle, Mary Suwatska, Rose Ann Seipel, Frankie Yetner, Dora Lynn Melnick, Patricia Bryant, Barbara Dixon, Jolene Otter, Nancy Burbacher, Betty Kazishka, Christine Kianka, Chris Rushik. Sorry guys, pronunciation is not my strong suit, but I am actually looking these up now and I'm really trying my best. But Carrie Harris, Teresa Landreneau, Connie Stover, Denise King, Denise Moeller, Melissa Benson, Terry Eads, Sheila Wagle, and Christine Beavis. So thank you guys so much for joining in the Quilting Friends Club. I think we're having a great time, and I can't wait to share this week's video on how do I quilt this and sharing all of the quilts that were posted for the last 2 weeks. So if you'd like to join in the fun and help support this podcast and all of the videos and things that I share online, come and check it out at quiltfriends.club. Now, if that's not your thing and you're not into joining online clubs and groups, I completely understand. There are other ways that you can help out, and I would sincerely appreciate anything you can do. It's hard for me to ask, and this is something I'm really working on. I'm working on making it more clear how you can help me out, and this is something I'm bad at, so forgive me as I stutter my way through this part of the podcast. But basically, anytime you share a review of the podcast, wherever you listen to the podcast, that really helps me out a lot. Also, sharing reviews of my books helps out a lot too. And Mally the Maker and the Queen in the Quilt is now available in ebook format, and you can find it in lots of new places now. You can find it on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. You can find the regular version of the book on Amazon.com. You can also find it on Kobo.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and for libraries, you can find it through Overdrive. So if you see the book, if you happen to be on any of those sites and you see, just run a search for Mally the Maker and the Queen in the Quilt, then you can share a review that review helps the book be found by more people, and that absolutely helps me out a lot. So I sincerely appreciate that. If you take the time to post a review, that helps me out a lot too. So that's it for this podcast introduction. I hope you're having an amazing quilting week. And now here is the lesson/essay about being our most creative selves and learning how to let go of things and what to hold on to. And I think what we need to hold on to most is our ability to create. Hello, my quilting friends. Welcome to episode 94 of the podcast. This week, I'm thinking about all my stuff. I have a lot of different interests, from quilting to woodworking to sewing dolls, and each of these crafts have a lot of tools and materials that come along with them. I tend to jump into projects on the fly, following inspiration and ideas as soon as they pop in my head. But I'm also one of those people that never learned to put her toys away after playing with them. Lately, I've been very busy and distracted, and I can tell because the surface of almost every table, every cabinet, the top of every drawer is covered with at least one, if not two, projects in some state of completion. It's not buried alive hoarder level yet. I can still walk into every room of my house, but it's very distracting. This is honestly driving me crazy. Because the tables are covered and every room is a mess, I can't follow my inspiration. I can't run with an idea that just popped into my head. There's so much stuff in my way, I can't make anything. When things get this messy, it's like a physical barrier to my creativity. I walk into a room where I want to work, and just seeing the clutter is a turnoff. I want to shift the stuff out of my way, but where is it going to go? I should clean up, I should get this under control, but when it's gotten this overwhelming, it's hard to know where to start. I usually just turn around and walk right back out of the room. Unfortunately, the clutter follows me to new places like my dining room table or couch. Wherever I park myself to make something, a work in progress, an accompanying bag or bin of materials soon follows. It's exhausting just looking at the messes. I don't want to take this on. I don't have the time or the energy, and the clutter just builds. I start schlepping the junk off one table and setting it on the floor while I use that surface. Then I throw it all back on the table when I'm done. It isn't any fun to work this way. I'm tripping on stuff the whole time. It's more stressful than fun, and I rarely produce my best work in this state. The fact that I know this, but continue to let my life clutter up to this degree, is beyond frustrating. My current mess of dolls, fabrics, quilt patterns, and lino cutting materials would probably have continued to build if it weren't for something new that happened this week. This week, my neighbors started cleaning up. I think the best way to describe this property is a junkyard. When we first looked at our house, this was the biggest detractor from buying it. We drove up and saw 10 rusted lawnmowers and tractors lining the edge of the property. The neighbor, an elderly man, had been hoarding lawn equipment for decades, and dozens of rusted hulks littered his yard. After seeing our house, Josh and I decided having a junkyard next door wasn't a deal breaker. As soon as we moved in, we put up a fence and planted trees to block the view. That neighbor passed away last year, and this week his family hired a crew to clean up the yard. That's right, a crew of people. Because it turns out the rusted lawnmowers we could see were just the ones on the surface. Everything is trapped under layers of weeds and brambles. A chainsaw has been running all week to chop down the trees that grew up through the middle of his tractors. They have a little bobcat they're using to pull things free and get the equipment on trucks. But as they dig out one rusting hulk, 2 or 3 more pieces of machinery are revealed. This junkyard only seems to be growing. It is 5 times more stuff than I ever thought was out there. They've opened the doors to a big barn, and you can see boxes and bins filled to the rafters, packed so tight they can barely walk into the building. To say it straight, it's a hot mess. I'm not sure if the landscaping crew knew what they were getting into. They've been making progress, but every day the job seems to be getting bigger, not smaller. It's also a cautionary tale that I immediately took note of. It made me think about my stuff and the things I'm keeping. How much do I really need? And how much is getting in my way and stopping me from being creative? Because I think my neighbor once was a creative person. He had that big barn after all, and he could have been a welder or even a blacksmith like my dad. But somewhere along the way, he stopped being creative and making things. He just started buying stuff. That stuff piled up and piled up and piled up, and eventually he ran out of room in the barn and started piling it up in his yard. and there it rotted. Trees and brambles grew up through these things he spent his money on, and now his family is having to spend more money to deal with this mess. I took this as a sign. I need to clean up my stuff. I got started in my upstairs sewing room. This is where I stash books, paint, yarn, sewing supplies, and my best quilts in the closet. I've been sewing Miss Bunny dolls in this room, so one table was entirely covered with dolls in various states of completion, along with fabric and pattern pieces. But the problem was far bigger than just what was setting on the table. There needs to be a place for these things to go, a correct place so that I can find these materials, patterns, and tools easily later. Too many times I've cleaned and purged my craft supplies only to wish for something just a few months later, but no matter how many bins I check, I can't put my hands on that tool or pot of paint. Did I get rid of it? I can't remember. Just last week I started searching for my small collection of Pearl X pigments for mixing with resin. I couldn't find them anywhere. Did I stick them in the paint bin? Did I take them downstairs to go with the clay? Or out in the barn with the resin? I can't find that pack of pigments anywhere, and it's frustrating not to know for sure if I threw them away or just misplaced them. So I'm trying to be careful about throwing things away. I'm also trying to be careful not to put things away too well, or else I might never find them again. As I started to clean up, I found 3 big books sitting on my sewing machine table that should have been on the bookshelf, but the shelves were bursting at the seams. I stopped sorting the stuff on the tables and took a good look at the books filling the space. Many I'd picked up when I thought I liked mixed media art and collages. Turns out I really can't stand that messy style. I started yanking books off the shelves. More piles form on the floor as I pulled out dozens of books I no longer love. Now there's space for the books and magazines I want to keep, and they're better organized so I can find what I'm looking for. But now I'm starving, and I have to stop. The room is even messier than it started, and I have an added trip to the used bookstore in mind. This is the thing about cleaning up. It gets worse before it gets better. Once the bookshelf is clear, it's time to get back to clearing off the table. I've moved the top layer of stuff that was just set on the table to get it out of the way. Now everything left is in some sort of half-finished state of completion. What do I do with a half-stitched Miss Bunny head and ear? I've made 6 dolls. Do I need to make one more? But it seems a shame to throw it away. I don't really know what to do with it. It's not done. I can't give it a home. Then I cleared off another set of shelves where I keep 3-ring binders and found a stash of plastic page protectors. These see-through sheets act like pockets inside a binder. Suddenly I had a solution. I placed the Miss Bunny pieces into the pockets, organizing them so I can quickly pull out the pieces when I need them. A quick label on the front, and this messy set of pattern pieces and fabrics became a binder on the shelf. I found many creative solutions like this. If it's flat enough to go into a binder, I stuck it in a binder. A lot of projects and materials just needed to be moved downstairs, so I made a pile near the door. The hardest part is knowing what to do with a project I want to work on right now, but have no time to work on. Should it go on my machine or in a bin? On my machine, it will hang around like a guilty reminder of what I'm not doing. In a bin, it will be too easy to forget about it. I selected one project to rest on my sewing machine table. All it requires is for me to wind bobbins and begin quilting. All other projects, even the ones I really want to pursue, went into drawers nearby. If I left them all out, after all, my sewing machine table would be so covered in stuff I wouldn't be able to find it. As I cleared out this room, a lot of icky emotions came to hang out too. Frustration was like an overbearing librarian, constantly breathing down my neck. So many things are in my way. Guilt hung around like a black cloud. Why did I spend money on this thing, I thought? Why did I start that doll only to stop at a point where it will be very difficult to pick it up and finish it? Anger nodded along with me as I berated myself. Why can't I be a neater person? Why do I do this? Because clearing out this stuff forces me to face not just the mess of my own making. I have to face the choices that have led me here. I've obviously fallen into the same trap as my neighbor, trying to buy my creativity with more stuff. I do this most often when I feel too busy to make decisions. Making things, being creative, is all about decision-making. What color thread should I use? How tight should that doll dress fit? How dense will this be quilted? What designs should I play with? When I'm too busy or stressed, making decisions like this is impossible. I want someone else to tell me how to do it. I can't think for myself when my brain is overwhelmed. So instead of taking action on one of those projects, it feels so much easier to go buy something new. I rush off to the craft store and find some new gadget or gizmo to buy instead. Now I have these extra tools and materials, and they need a home too. That's more stuff to organize, more stuff in my way, more stuff to misplace and have to search for later. This is making me less creative, not more. I'm sorry, but I really don't like the saying, "She who dies with the most fabric wins." It's disturbing, and where do you think that fabric will end up? One of my friends in college worked at Goodwill and explained that when things like fabric are donated, they're usually thrown away. Unless the staff at Goodwill knows how to package and price an item, it will end up in the trash. I'm sure my neighbor thought his tractors were very valuable at one time, but I can bet his family isn't very happy with him about it today. After clearing and cleaning my sewing room, I took a break from it for a few days. Last night I realized in order to finish this story, I needed the payoff of creating something new in my clean space. I picked the small embroidery project I'd set on my sewing machine. Over a month ago, I embroidered the words "Embrace Change," my words of the year, onto a small quilt sandwich. It's been waiting to be quilted and turned into a hoop quilt ever since. I sat down, planned my design, and quilted it in less time than it took my son to make a small batch of cookies. As I popped the quilt into the frame, I took note of two things. That was very satisfying and a lot faster than I expected. That's the thing about being messy. When that becomes the usual state of everything, all projects automatically take longer and feel more exhausting. I went into quilting this little quilt thinking it would take hours. It ended up only taking 20 minutes. I had time that evening to finish a second project. I've been trying out wood burning on a set of balsa wood doors I designed for Miss Bunny's closet. It's a weird project. It hasn't turned out perfect, and even now I'm not sure if I'm going to use these pieces or remake them out of thicker, sturdier wood. This is the kind of project that can easily get stuck on unanswered questions. Is this material too thin? Will it wear well or just fall apart? How am I going to attach the hinges? Each question represents more decisions I need to make about this project. But last night I realized I just need to complete one task. I need to burn the design on the second door. Then I can figure out the next step. Again, this went much faster and easier than expected. It still wasn't perfect. I'm not very good at wood burning, but it was fun and satisfying to get the job done. Tomorrow I can answer the question about the hinges and attach the doors to the closet and see if this project is going to work. I'm at the next step. I've answered some questions, made some decisions, and this creative project is not getting stuck in process, but moving forward smoothly. So this is the lesson I want to remember from this whole ordeal. Being creative is fast. It's very easy and fluid and peaceful if my space is clean and clear and easy to work in. I never got bogged down by all the stuff I had to schlep out of my way. I could easily find the tools and materials I wanted to play with. Junk wasn't falling off the tabletop or getting clogged in my chair wheels. I know not everyone works the same way. I've met many creatives that seem to thrive in a messy, disorganized space. I'm not advising a one-size-fits-all strategy, but I wanted to share this just in case. Life is busy, messes happen. If the idea of making something or finishing a project feels heavy instead of light, that's a sign something else may be going on. What does your creative room look like? Is it the mess that is weighing on you, or a serious decision you need to make in order to finish that project? Does it feel easier to go to the store and buy something new instead? If so, I promise you the weight and difficulty you feel have nothing to do with that project or being creative. If you clean up a bit, give yourself more space, you will find it easier and faster and lighter to work and be your most creative self. So that's it for this podcast. Let me know what you think of this new format. I certainly enjoyed the challenge of writing and narrating this for you guys this week. I do hope to bring you new lessons and stories from the Mally the Maker universe coming soon. Now you can find all of the podcast episodes I've shared so far at leahday.com/podcast. And don't forget to join in the fun of the Quilt Friends Club and help support this show and all of the quilting tutorials I share online. Come and check it out at quiltfriends.club. Until next time, let's go quilt.